Some people can sing, but this guy's voice was so powerful it literally broke microphones. No, really. Studio engineers were stunned as his voice physically blew out their equipment. This wasn't a legend. For Chris Cornell, it was just another day at the office. And his voice was insane. He had a nearly 4-octave range, a crazy technical skill that let him go from a monster rock scream to a gentle, heartbreaking whisper in a split second. He was a leader of the grunge movement that took over the world, a songwriter who wrote lyrics that were pure poetry, and an artist who refused to be put in a box. From the raw power of Soundgarden to his genre-destroying solo work, I'm gonna break down the artistic journey of a complete rock legend. This is the insane story of how Chris Cornell's fearless evolution created a musical legacy that will never be matched. Believe it or not, before he was a rock god, Chris Cornell was just a lonely kid in Seattle. After finding a bunch of old records in a neighbor's basement, he spent 2 full years from age 9 to 11 doing nothing but obsessing over the Beatles, learning everything about their music. But as a teenager, he spiraled into a massive depression, dropped out of high school, and almost never left his house. Music became the only thing he had. At the exact same time in the early 80s, Seattle was about to explode. The city's isolation from places like LA and New York created a totally unique scene. Bands weren't chasing trends. They were mixing punk rock with a super heavy sound of bands like Black Sabbath, creating the sound that would become grunge. This is where Cornell found his crew, eventually co-founding Soundgarden in 1984. But here's the craziest part. At first, he was the drummer and the lead singer at the same time. That's an absolutely punishing combination that just shows his insane ambition. It wasn't until Matt Cameron joined on drums that Cornell could finally step up to the mic and unleash his legendary voice. Soundgarden was different from the jump. While other bands were all about punk energy, Soundgarden was heavier, weirder, and way more complex. They were already trailblazers on the legendary Sub Pop label, and in 1988, they became the first Seattle grunge band to sign a massive deal with a major label, A&M Records, putting the entire world on notice. They toured non-stop, building a fan base with their punishingly intense live shows, not by getting on the radio. Cornell's lyrics were always about feeling like an outsider, about despair, and looking for some kind of hope. Ideas that hit hard with an entire generation that felt ignored. He wasn't just singing about being sad, he was building a whole world with his words, starting a journey that would make him the leader of a musical revolution. This is where things get wild though. As the 80s ended, the Seattle scene violently exploded, and Soundgarden led the charge. Their 1989 album, Louder Than Love, was an absolute beast. Heavy, dark, and demanding. But it was their next album, 1991's Bad Motorfinger, released in the same incredible season as Nirvana's Nevermind and Pearl Jam's 10, that lit the fuse on the grunge explosion. Bad Motorfinger was a masterclass in making chaos sound catchy. Songs like Rusty Cage and Outshined had insane rhythms and tunings, but were still huge hits. That was Soundgarden's secret weapon. They made music that was artistically brilliant and commercially huge at the same time. Cornell's voice was at a whole new level of power, going from a primal scream to a perfect melody in a heartbeat. Then came 1994. Grunge was at its absolute peak, but it was also starting to fall apart. In March, Soundgarden dropped Super Unknown. It was their masterpiece. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard charts and became a global phenomenon. Spoon Man and The Haunting Ballad Fell on Black Days showed their incredible range. And then there was Black Hole Sun. The song's surreal, nightmarish music video made it a completely unexpected mega hit. Super Unknown wasn't just another grunge album, it was an art rock masterpiece. But with massive success came insane pressure. The band felt like a business, and it controlled everything they did. Their last album from that time, 1996's Down on the Upside, was a deliberate move away from the super heavy sound. It was way more experimental, the sound of a band trying to break out of a box that fame had built. The tension was getting unbearable though. Cornell said it wasn't about creating music anymore. It was about the endless cycle of touring and promotion. The breaking point came at a show in Hawaii in February 1997 when bassist Ben Shepherd walked off stage. Just 2 months later, the band officially split. It was one of the most shocking moves in music history, ending a legendary band at the peak of its power. But they refused to let their art become a horrible product of nostalgia. But get this, even while Soundgarden was taking over the planet, Chris Cornell proved he was too big for just one band. Back in 1990, after his friend Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone died, Cornell started a secret tribute project. He wrote songs that were way more soulful and sad than Soundgarden's usual stuff, and brought them to Wood's former bandmates, who were busy forming a new band called Pearl Jam. The result was Temple of the Dog. That one-off album was a legendary moment in rock history. It let Cornell show off a completely different side of his voice, focusing on melody and mourning instead of his usual aggression. Say Hello to Heaven was just pure grief, and his incredible duet with Eddie Vedder on Hunger Strike became a powerful anthem for a generation. Then, after Soundgarden's shocking breakup, he did the unthinkable. In 2001, he joined forces with the instrumental members of another 90s giant, Tom Morello, Tim Comfort, and Brad Wilk of Rage Against the Machine. People thought this supergroup would never work, but they were wrong. They formed Audioslave. Their 2002 debut album was a multi-platinum smash. On songs like Cochise and Show Me How to Live, Cornell's voice was unbelievable, but it was the ballad Like a Stone that became a massive global hit. But their biggest moment ever came on May 6, 2005. They became the first major American rock band to play a gigantic free outdoor concert in Havana, Cuba. Over 70,000 people showed up for this historic event, a cultural earthquake for a crowd who knew American rock as forbidden enemies music. Audioslave proved Cornell could not only start over, but create something legendary. On top of all of that, Chris Cornell had an incredible solo career where his creativity could run completely wild. It kicked off with 1999's Euphoria Morning, an album that swapped heavy guitars for lush, vulnerable, and emotional music. It even got him a Grammy nomination for the single Can't Change Me. His solo career was totally unpredictable. After the moody Euphoria Morning, his 2007 album Carry On included the powerhouse anthem You Know My Name, which he wrote and performed for the James Bond film Casino Royale. The song was a perfect fit, capturing the raw energy of the new James Bond. But then, he took on his most controversial challenge ever. In 2009, he partnered with pop and hip-hop super producer Timbaland to make a pop album called Scream. the rock world completely lost its mind. Fans and critics were so confused, but Cornell didn't care. He wanted to prove that no genre was off limits. Scream was a defiant move from an artist who refused to be a caricature of himself. For his last solo album, he went in the complete opposite direction. Inspired by his super popular acoustic tours, he released 2015's Higher Truth. It was an intimate and personal album with one simple rule. Every song had to be perfect with just his voice and a guitar. On tracks like Nearly Forgot My Broken Heart, his voice wasn't about power, but about incredible, nuanced storytelling. It was the perfect, unintentional final statement from an artist who spent his whole life searching for truth. So how do you measure a legacy this huge? Chris Cornell's impact is bigger than just sales and awards. It's written into the DNA of modern rock. You can hear it in the insane four-octave voice he made seem so easy. You feel it in the courage of artists who refuse to be put in a box. He was a main architect of the 90s grunge movement, but never let it define him. From the raw power of Soundgarden, the emotional tribute of Temple of the Dog, the supergroup force of Audioslave, and the fearless experiments of his solo career, the man never stopped evolving. And get this, even after he passed away in 2017, his story isn't over. After a long legal battle was finally settled in 2023, his Soundgarden bandmates are now finishing the last album they ever started with him. In late 2025, drummer Matt Cameron revealed that the album was over halfway done, calling the process an emotionally gut-wrenching but empowering journey for the band. They are handling it with extreme care to honor his spirit. Chris Cornell was more than a rock star though. He was a true artist, a seeker, an innovator, and a voice for anyone who's ever felt like an outsider. His music proves the power of finding your own voice and using it without fear. His sound always changed, but his truth never did. And that voice, that incredible, powerful, one-of-a-kind voice, will echo forever. I want to know what your favorite Chris Cornell song is. Let me know in the comments right now. Is it a Soundgarden track, an Audioslave track, or even a quiet solo song? Share it below. Nothing is off limits. Whatever Chris Cornell has worked on, put it down in the comments. And if you want to see more insane stories about music legends like this, subscribe right now so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching.